The Stoics believed that the foundation of a strong life is the belief you hold in yourself. This belief is not ego. It is not loud. It does not need validation. It does not need praise. It is rooted in action, tested in silence, and proven in difficulty. Self-belief is not about thinking you are better than others. It is about knowing that you have trained your mind, formed your character, and can rely on your own conduct. The world often rewards appearance. The Stoic does not. The Stoic rewards alignment. He looks at himself each day and asks, "Am I living according to my principles? Have I done the work I said I would do? Have I met challenge with reason?" This is the soil from which self-belief grows. In this video, we will walk through 7 Stoic laws that build this self-belief. Each one is a principle that, if lived consistently, shapes your identity from within. You do not need external proof. You do not need anyone to tell you who you are. You will know it by your preparation, your choices, your restraint, and your endurance. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The Law of Inner Authority. Inner authority is not granted. It is built through a disciplined alignment between intention and behavior. When your actions reflect your stated values, you begin to form a foundation of internal trust. This trust is not based on optimism or emotion. It comes from observable evidence. You said you would do something, and you did it. You said you would hold a standard, and you held it. Repetition of this process strengthens self-respect. This alignment removes confusion. When your choices match your philosophy, you no longer argue with yourself. Your mind stops doubting its own direction. The inner conflict weakens. You do not need to convince yourself with words. You see the proof in your conduct. This consistency creates a sense of internal gravity. Your center holds. You are less moved by the opinions of others. You do not pause to seek reassurance. You act from a stable base already built by your behavior. The Stoics viewed this foundation as essential. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." The instruction is clear. You must look inward. The work is internal. This type of inspection demands precision. You must examine what you tolerate. You must measure your daily decisions against the standards you claim to hold. If there is a gap, close it. If your words are higher than your actions, reduce the gap through discipline. Begin with structure. Set your direction every morning. Keep it simple and specific. Name 1 or 2 principles you will live by that day. At night, review. Ask yourself if you lived those principles. If not, record why. Be honest. Track patterns. This process reveals what is true about your character, not what is convenient. You will begin to see which situations trigger compromise. You will see where you speak of values you do not yet live. This is not failure, it is information. Use that information to make corrections. If you commit to silence during conflict but keep reacting in anger, then the principle is not yet real. Reduce the situation. Train in the smaller version. Practice silence during a small interruption. Practice control during mild irritation. Build authority in stages. Do not rely on motivation. Rely on your system. The consistency of this process makes the results reliable. When you say you will follow a path, your actions will now confirm it. This creates confidence. Every decision you complete adds mass to your internal core. You feel yourself becoming less reactive. You feel your voice becoming steadier. You feel your posture shifting from doubt to certainty. When you do not compromise, your identity becomes solid. When your life becomes an expression of your principles, you stop searching for confirmation. The belief is already embedded in your structure. This is not performance. This is the result of practice. You are not trying to appear strong. You are training to be dependable. The outcome is not to impress others. It is to build a mind you can trust. Inner authority is the capacity to act with clarity regardless of pressure. You do not borrow stability. You generate it through discipline. This is how the Stoics developed unshakable self-belief, through measured action, through reflection, through the daily work of living aligned. Chapter 2. The Law of Rational Judgment. The second law is the law of rational judgment. This principle teaches that self-belief must be supported by accurate thinking. If your thoughts are distorted, then your conclusions will be unstable. If your beliefs about yourself or the world are formed through fear, pride, or emotional reaction, they cannot be trusted. A person who consistently forms judgments based on unclear thinking will struggle to rely on their own mind. Their inner world becomes chaotic. This lack of clarity weakens their ability to make sound decisions. The Stoics placed judgment at the center of their philosophy. Epictetus taught that events themselves do not disturb us. It is our interpretations of those events that cause emotional suffering. This idea is not abstract. It is practical. If you are rejected, it is not the rejection itself that causes pain, but your interpretation of what it means. If you fail, the facts are neutral. The meaning you attach to the failure is what shapes your emotional state. These interpretations must be examined and, when necessary, corrected. The mind creates stories. Many of those stories are false. A single thought, such as, "I am not good enough," can influence your decisions for years if it is left unchallenged. These types of thoughts are not based on truth. They are conclusions drawn from emotion or past events that were never studied with reason. If they remain unexamined, they become the default lens through which you see the world. This lens shapes your behavior. It limits your action. It blocks the development of self-belief. The Stoic corrects this by treating thoughts like hypotheses. He does not automatically accept them. He inspects them with care. Each thought must be tested for accuracy, for usefulness, and for alignment with virtue. He asks questions. Is this thought true? Is there clear evidence? Does this thought help me live with strength and reason? If it fails these tests, it must be replaced. The goal is not to simply think positively. The goal is to think clearly. This clarity requires repetition. You must learn to pause before accepting a thought. If you feel insulted, pause. If you feel anxious, pause. Write the thought down. Break it into pieces. Ask yourself what evidence supports it. Ask if it reflects virtue or fear. Ask if a more accurate version of the thought exists. You are not arguing with yourself. You are organizing your mind. You are creating order where there was confusion. A person who has trained this habit becomes harder to shake. Their mind does not leap to conclusions. It does not assume malice where there is none. It does not create stories based on insecurity. This stability becomes a foundation for belief. If your thoughts are grounded in truth, then your confidence grows. You are no longer pulled by every passing doubt. You no longer become paralyzed by what others might think. You have tested your thinking and confirmed its clarity. You move with direction. The world is full of noise. People react without thinking. They follow impulses. They chase illusions. The Stoic steps back. He filters input through reason. He does not let assumptions drive his actions. He studies the structure of his thought before he moves. This process builds discipline. The result is a quiet confidence. A mind trained in judgment is less reactive, more stable, and more self-assured. Self-belief must be earned through mental clarity. You cannot force belief with positive affirmations if your judgments are still distorted. You must first make your perceptions clean. When your conclusions reflect reality, when your beliefs are tested through reason, then the foundation for belief becomes stable. You no longer depend on feelings to assess your worth. You depend on observation, on truth, and on the reasoning you have trained through daily practice. This is the work of the Stoic. He studies his thoughts like a craftsman examines tools. He sharpens what is dull. He repairs what is damaged. He discards what is broken. Through this process, he builds a mind that can guide him through complexity. This mind does not panic. It does not exaggerate. It does not lie. From this kind of mind, real confidence emerges. It is confidence rooted in perception that matches reality. It is the result of disciplined thinking and honest inspection. This is how the Stoic develops unwavering self-belief. By first learning to see clearly, by removing distortion, by choosing reason. Chapter 3. The Law of Consistent Effort. The third Stoic law for unwavering self-belief is the law of consistent effort. This principle states that belief must be demonstrated through disciplined and repeated action. Thought without action cannot build confidence. Intention alone does not strengthen character. The Stoics believed that the only way to trust yourself was to train yourself consistently in the practice of effort. Seneca wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." When a person avoids the demands of real effort, the mind begins to create exaggerated fears. It builds false scenarios. It drifts into worry. Energy is spent on prediction instead of production. The act of doing breaks this cycle. Effort grounds the mind. It brings attention back to what can be moved forward. Effort is not limited to grand goals. It applies to your smallest decisions. Waking up with discipline. Beginning a task without delay. Following through on your daily standard. These actions reinforce a belief that you are in motion, that you are taking control, that you are honoring what you said you would do. When this pattern becomes consistent, your inner dialogue shifts. You no longer argue with yourself. You act because you have trained yourself to act. The Stoics did not treat discomfort as a punishment. They used it as preparation. Voluntary discomfort was a tool to condition the body and mind to endure challenge. Exposure to cold, hunger, fatigue, and labor served as proof that their strength could be relied on. This exposure was a signal to the self. I can face what is hard. I can endure without escape. Each act created a memory that strengthened their self-belief. You do not need extreme conditions to apply this principle. Begin by choosing a discipline. Keep it simple and measurable. A set wake-up time, a daily journal, a routine walk, a cold shower, a push-up routine, a reading commitment. Choose something physical or mental that demands consistent effort. Pick a task that requires structure, not emotion. Begin each day by doing it, especially when your body resists and your mind argues. Discipline forms when action overrides impulse. The mind begins to adapt. The act of choosing effort becomes a signal to yourself that you will follow through. Start simple. A short morning workout, a walk without distraction, a daily writing session. These are tools, not achievements. Their purpose is to build mental structure. When repeated without excuse, these tasks become part of your system. You stop asking if you feel like doing them. You do them because they are scheduled. They are part of your code. Physical effort has a direct impact on the mind. A trained body does not just move with more strength. It carries itself with intention. It walks straighter. It sits with discipline. It breathes more efficiently. Each of these changes sends a signal to the brain. I am active, I am capable, I am in control. Weight training sharpens this even further. You push against resistance. You lift what once felt impossible. You track numbers. You see proof. You build resilience by facing discomfort and choosing to continue. Progress creates momentum. When you see change in your body, you begin to expect it in other areas. You want better sleep, cleaner nutrition, deeper focus. You build routines to support these aims. This consistent execution shapes your identity. You become the kind of person who follows through, who respects process, who trusts structure more than mood. You begin to crave that momentum. You feel uneasy when the pattern breaks. This hunger is not addiction, it is alignment. Mental effort follows the same path. Reading a page of philosophy, reflecting in a journal, memorizing a principle, each act builds intellectual stamina. Each session trains the brain to resist distraction. Your thoughts become more directed. You stop following scattered impulses. You stay on track longer. Your inner dialogue sharpens. Your words become more deliberate. The quality of your thinking rises with the effort you apply to structure it. When both the body and mind are engaged in this way, clarity increases. You no longer feel like you are guessing your way through the day. You are executing a plan you built. You are adjusting based on review. You are reinforcing patterns that serve your purpose. The result is a deep sense of internal stability. This is the foundation of self-belief. Effort becomes your mirror. It reflects what you can do. It reflects what you tolerate. It reflects your seriousness. It shows your character in action. Each day you act with discipline, that mirror becomes sharper. You do not need to imagine who you are becoming. You can see it in what you've done. The body adapts, the mind adapts. The identity forms through repetition. You confirm progress by measuring action, not intention. Some days will feel flat. Some days will show no visible result. This does not mean the work failed. This is part of the cycle. The Stoic prepares for these days. He knows that belief must be practiced when there is no applause. He understands that structure must be honored when energy is low. He keeps his system intact. He executes his routine without debate. This consistency builds trust. When progress returns, it returns on a stronger foundation. Effort during difficult moments reveals the true depth of your discipline. Every time you act while tired, you add to your internal ledger. Every time you complete a task with less than ideal conditions, you prove that your standards are real. These acts compound. They build a history of strength. This history becomes a shield against doubt. You remember what you've done. You rely on it when pressure rises again. This is why tracking matters. Write what you did. Record what you skipped. Label the excuses that appeared. Call them out. Then return to your standard. Let your system adjust. If your task was too large, break it down. If your time was scattered, lock it in. Keep the structure tight. Keep the friction low. The goal is consistency. The outcome is identity. The reward is internal certainty. A Stoic works from the principle of control. He knows that outcomes may vary. What he controls is the decision to act. What he holds is the choice to stay the course. The world may shift, plans may collapse, but structure built on consistent effort remains. It becomes the frame through which he responds to challenge. It becomes the reason he does not panic, delay, or collapse. You do not need large actions. You need deliberate repetition. Every repetition confirms your identity. Every act of alignment between intention and action builds trust in the self. When the body moves according to the mind's direction and habits are upheld without excuse, confidence begins to form from the inside. Self-belief grows because your behavior becomes reliable. You stop needing to prove who you are because your routines already reflect it. This belief is not a feeling. It is a product of structure. A disciplined life removes doubt. The Stoic sees repetition as reinforcement. Each repeated decision strengthens the mental connection between identity and action. A daily push-up is not just about strength. A cold shower is not just about resilience. A focused hour of reading is not just about learning. These actions carry weight because they are consistent. They remind you that you are in control of yourself. Clarity comes from this repetition. Distractions become easier to filter out. You no longer shift direction based on emotion. You stop asking yourself what to do each day. You already know. You have created the structure that guides you. Each choice is a continuation, not a debate. This gives the Stoic an advantage. His energy is not scattered. His confidence is not unstable. It rests on the knowledge that he does what must be done, regardless of mood. The Stoic earns confidence through work. He shapes his discipline by doing what he committed to. He protects it by rejecting anything that weakens his system. He expands it through action. Every day he shows up, he is reinforcing the structure. The belief becomes embedded in the rhythm of his life. He does not hope for certainty. He lives in a way that makes it real. Chapter 4. The Law of Self-Restraint. The fourth law is the law of self-restraint. This principle is about directing your behavior with reason rather than reaction. It involves containing your emotions, controlling your urges, and moderating your speech. Without this control, self-belief becomes fragile. If you cannot rely on your behavior in moments of stress, you cannot develop trust in your own character. A person who is ruled by emotional impulses does not trust their decisions. Their moods dictate their actions. Their speech becomes automatic and reactive. Their behavior becomes inconsistent. Each time they act without reflection, they create consequences they did not intend. This leaves behind a trail of regret, confusion, and instability. Over time, this builds internal doubt. The person no longer trusts themselves to respond well under pressure. The mind begins to expect failure in moments of stress. This weakens confidence and clouds judgment. When your responses are based on temporary emotions, your character becomes difficult to define. One day you may act with courage, another with cowardice. One conversation may show maturity, another may reveal impulsiveness. There is no consistency. Without consistency, there is no stability. Without stability, belief in oneself fades. The person begins to fear their own reactions. This fear creates hesitation. It leads to avoidance. It turns opportunity into anxiety. The Stoics trained to prevent this pattern. They placed restraint at the foundation of self-governance. They did not see it as suppression. They saw it as control over their own direction. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each day that true power exists in the mind. It is not dependent on circumstance. It is not shaped by public opinion. It is built internally through habit, through awareness, and through constant correction. This training begins small. It begins when someone cuts you off in conversation. It begins when a message provokes irritation. It begins when your ego reacts to criticism. In these moments, restraint must be chosen deliberately. The pause is the practice. You let the emotion pass before speaking. You sit with the discomfort without needing to react. You examine the emotion without letting it define your behavior. This repetition builds control. The mind stops being pulled by every external change. It begins to filter before it moves. Restraint is a habit, not a performance. It must be formed through frequent exposure to pressure. Controlled response is trained by being tested in real-world situations. You do not prepare for peace. You prepare for interruption. You train your restraint when stakes are low, so you can use it when stakes are high. The daily interruptions become the dojo. The random frustrations become your practice grounds. When you meet them calmly, your discipline sharpens. This discipline begins to shape how you communicate. You speak clearly, without rushing. You leave silence where others rush to fill space. You no longer speak to dominate. You speak to serve understanding. You do not need to correct every error you hear. You do not need to add your opinion to every subject. You reduce the urge to justify your position. Your presence becomes deliberate. Your words carry more weight because they are chosen. Your tone becomes measured. Your energy becomes composed. This carries into your routines. You stop reaching for food to avoid emotion. You stop checking your phone to avoid silence. You stop reacting to discomfort by chasing immediate pleasure. Your habits become cleaner because your responses are no longer dictated by anxiety. You learn to let discomfort sit without rushing to escape it. You feel the urge, but you do not follow it. You make choices that are structured, not reactionary. This changes the way you live. When you have trained restraint, you begin to carry yourself with calm authority. You no longer fear situations where tension may rise. You are not nervous about what you might say. You are not unsure of how you might act. You move into difficulty with preparation. You remain grounded under pressure. You expect emotional surges, but you know how to meet them. This confidence is built on repetition. The Stoic does not develop restraint to impress others. He builds it to protect his inner world. He keeps that world in order. He strengthens the mind to resist internal chaos. His discipline allows him to face insult without retaliation. It allows him to hear disagreement without tension. It allows him to endure delay without complaint. This is a form of structure that cannot be taken from him. It travels with him into every environment. Self-restraint refines your judgment. It slows you down just enough to make deliberate choices. It keeps you from unnecessary conflict. It keeps you from abandoning your path when things become difficult. It helps you move from impulse to principle. This stability builds clarity. The mind that pauses sees further. The mind that reflects responds better. The mind that waits can evaluate without rush. This type of restraint is rare. It is a form of strength that does not need to announce itself. It shows in posture. It shows in quiet responses. It shows in steady decisions. People recognize it, even if they cannot name it. They sense that you do not chase chaos. They see that you do not collapse in argument. They notice that you are calm when others are not. This presence builds trust. That trust includes trust in yourself. The Stoic knows that he cannot control events, but he can control how he meets them. That meeting point is where self-belief is formed. If he meets events with thought, with stillness, and with discipline, then he confirms his strength. This is what separates reaction from response. It is what turns character into direction. It is what transforms values into conduct. Self-belief becomes unshakable when you stop being a stranger to your own behavior, when you know how you will act in difficulty, when you trust your words under pressure, when you can see a storm coming and remain composed. This does not happen through theory. It happens through training, through intentional practice, through the steady development of restraint. This is how the Stoic builds his power. Quietly, through control, through stillness, through the discipline of the self. Chapter 5. The Law of Emotional Responsibility. The fifth Stoic law for unwavering self-belief is the law of emotional responsibility. This law states that you are accountable for your emotional responses. The Stoic does not outsource blame. He does not attribute his anger, envy, or fear to others. He understands that these responses come from within, shaped by his judgments and internal narratives. If you believe that your emotions are caused by other people, you hand over control. You allow external events to shape your internal state. You give others the ability to disturb your peace simply through their actions or words. This creates a reactive life, where your stability depends on things you cannot influence. When this happens, your emotional state becomes unstable. You begin to shift with the moods and behaviors of others. This pattern weakens your foundation. It creates a sense of helplessness. You cannot build trust in yourself if your reactions are unpredictable and dependent on the actions of others. Stability begins when you accept that emotions are responses you generate, not experiences handed to you by others. The Stoics trained to detect the connection between internal judgment and emotional reaction. They studied how an event or comment did not directly cause a feeling. Instead, it was their interpretation of the event that gave rise to emotion. A sharp insult is only noise until the mind gives it meaning. A delay is only time until the mind defines it as inconvenience. The feeling that follows is created by the value assigned to the situation. Recognizing this separation allows you to pause. It shows you that you have a choice. The emotion is not automatic. It is built from belief, and belief can be adjusted. This process begins with awareness. When you feel an emotional surge, whether it is anger, jealousy, fear, or shame, pause and isolate the cause. Look beyond the surface. Ask yourself what you were expecting. Ask what assumption you made about the outcome. Ask what personal meaning you assigned to the moment. You may find that the emotion is based on a perceived threat to your image, your control, or your comfort. Most emotional distress is built on internal expectation, not external reality. This can be changed. It takes discipline, but it can be done. By pausing and analyzing, you create a small gap between stimulus and reaction. That gap is where clarity can enter. It allows you to think before acting. It gives you a space where you can choose reason over reflex. That choice reinforces your authority over your emotional system. You begin to see yourself as the operator of your emotions, not a prisoner to them. This is not about ignoring emotion. It is about directing it. You acknowledge what you feel without immediately acting from it. You make space for the discomfort. You let the feeling rise, and then you decide what expression fits your principles. You respond based on structure, not pressure. You do not use emotion as a justification. You use it as information. That is the turning point. You begin to manage your reactions based on what you've decided is right, not what you've been provoked into doing. Practicing this builds emotional endurance. You start to hold steady when tension rises. You stop collapsing into impulsive behavior. You learn to observe discomfort without flinching. This gives you an advantage in any high-pressure situation. Whether in conflict, delay, failure, or uncertainty, you maintain your posture. That discipline gives others the impression of strength, but more importantly, it gives you confidence in yourself. The Stoic treats emotional responsibility as a standard of maturity. He does not seek to eliminate feelings. He seeks to lead them. He sees strong feeling as something that can be refined, like energy being channeled into action. Anger can become justice. Fear can become caution. Sadness can become clarity. These transformations require attention. They require effort, but they also make your emotions useful instead of destructive. Each time you manage an emotion with precision, you build trust in yourself. You build evidence. You remember that you stayed calm when others reacted. You remember that you controlled your voice when it wanted to rise. You remember that you did not speak from panic or pride. These moments create a reliable pattern. That pattern becomes the basis for your self-respect. You know how you will act under pressure. You do not guess. You do not worry. You remember what you've already practiced. When you take full responsibility for your emotions, you simplify your life. You stop blaming others. You stop waiting for better conditions. You stop expecting others to validate or soothe you. You build a closed system of clarity. You become the one who calms your thoughts. You become the one who recenters your attention. You reduce dependence. You increase direction. This becomes your source of strength. You begin to trust yourself because your internal reactions are no longer wild. They are no longer ruled by social cues or external triggers. They move within the frame of your reason. You still feel, but you are the one who determines what the feeling means. You are the one who decides how it moves you. That clarity forms the foundation of quiet confidence. This is emotional responsibility. It is not a trait you are born with. It is a discipline you practice daily. It is a way of interacting with the world that reduces confusion and increases precision. It allows you to face discomfort, change, and confrontation without collapse. The Stoic holds this standard because it builds a self that is trustworthy under any pressure. The more you live this way, the more your self-belief becomes a steady structure. You know you will respond with discipline because you have trained it. You know your emotions will not break your focus because you have understood them. This is the discipline of inner command. Chapter 6. The Law of Solitude and Inner Clarity. The sixth Stoic law for unwavering self-belief is the law of solitude and inner clarity. This law teaches that belief in oneself cannot fully form without periods of solitude. Time spent alone gives space for thought to settle, decisions to clarify, and values to realign. Without solitude, the noise of daily life dominates the mind. The voice of reason becomes difficult to hear. Clarity fades when attention is always outward. The Stoics used solitude as a tool. They practiced silence, reflection, and detachment to examine their thoughts without external influence. Solitude created distance from the noise of daily life. In that distance, the mind could slow down. It could observe itself. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself in meditations to retreat into the inner self often. He viewed this as a form of mental hygiene. Just as the body needs physical rest to recover from fatigue, the mind needs stillness to recover from overload. Stillness is the method. Without movement, you notice what is moving within. Without conversation, you notice what your mind is saying to itself. This is not a withdrawal from responsibility. It is a return to order. The Stoics used solitude to organize their judgment, to review their values, and to clarify their priorities. Silence helped them reset their direction. Solitude reveals how you actually think. It removes the filters of habit, noise, and imitation. When there is no one to respond to and nothing to react to, your mind begins to surface what it has been carrying. Ideas rise that were buried beneath tasks. Emotions come forward that had been suppressed. You begin to see which thoughts repeat and which ones shape your attitude. You learn whether your dominant thoughts are useful or chaotic. You begin to understand the tone of your inner speech. Is it rushed? Is it scattered? Is it structured? These questions cannot be answered in motion. They require space. Without solitude, it's easy to live through automatic behavior. Your days get filled with reaction. You respond to messages, noise, opinions, and urgency. This keeps the mind externally focused. You start to lose track of your own direction. You forget what your goals were. You forget what values guide you. You begin to mirror the tone of the world instead of choosing your own. Solitude reverses this drift. To apply this law, begin with daily periods of stillness. These do not need to be long. 10 to 20 minutes of uninterrupted silence is enough to start. Remove screens, remove music, remove tasks. Sit in a place where you will not be disturbed. Keep your back straight. Let your thoughts move. Do not try to stop them, just observe them. Then begin to write. Write what you see, what you feel, and what keeps returning to your attention. Use the journal as a mental mirror. It will show you what you are repeating. It will show you what needs action. It will show you where you are drifting. This is how you correct direction. If you are worried about something, ask yourself what part of it you control. If you notice that you are repeating the same frustration, ask what habit creates it. Let the writing clarify what the mind had left tangled. These moments of solitude will begin to form a pattern. They will help you see how thought affects behavior. You will notice how external events lose influence when your mind is anchored. You will feel the difference between scattered thinking and organized reflection. You will begin to notice fewer moments of reactivity and more instances of deliberate response. Your actions start to match your values because you have taken the time to identify them clearly. This structure builds consistency. The mind becomes familiar with reviewing its own thoughts. That familiarity gives your thinking more precision. You are no longer guessing what matters. You are reviewing what has already shown itself. As this pattern builds, your decisions become cleaner. You move with greater intent. You begin to feel when you are drifting, and you adjust early. You stop acting from confusion. You begin to recognize when you are operating from borrowed ideas and when you are returning to your own principles. You learn to separate what feels urgent from what is actually important. You stop responding to everything. You select your responses based on reason. Your energy becomes more focused. Your posture becomes more steady. You move less, but every movement has weight. Solitude is also how you process doubt. You do not push the doubt away. You bring it into focus. You break it into pieces. You examine what is uncertain and name it. You identify what you can influence and what is irrelevant. You reduce mental noise by turning confusion into structure. You give doubt a clear path. You allow the mind to work with the problem, not collapse under it. This practice removes emotional pressure. It lets the mind perform its job. You think through the issue instead of reacting from it. This habit turns discomfort into data. It turns delay into review. It builds your ability to hold tension without rushing for release. You stop letting questions loop in your mind without direction. You stop feeding the cycle of overthinking. You begin to define the problem with clarity. You look at it from different angles. You record what is exaggerated. You let go of what cannot be changed. You act on what remains. This way of thinking trains the mind to handle complexity without panic. It builds mental order. It protects decision-making under pressure. It reduces wasted energy. This is the value of structured solitude. It makes your thinking more efficient. The Stoic treats solitude as an active responsibility. It is not withdrawal. It is refinement. It is how he prepares to engage with life at full capacity. He does not wait for solitude to be convenient. He schedules it. He treats it as non-negotiable. It is part of his routine. It is part of his system of self-command. Without it, he begins to lose clarity. With it, he recovers balance. He checks his principles, corrects his attitude, and returns to action with direction. When he enters the world, he does so from a position of preparation. His thoughts are filtered. His emotions are stable. His plans are simple. His focus is directed. When people around him become reactive, he stays composed. When the environment becomes noisy, he remains calm. When the pace accelerates, he holds his rhythm. This is the result of daily time spent in solitude. It is not dramatic. It is consistent. It produces a strength that others notice, but cannot trace. That strength comes from internal clarity. When pressure builds, the Stoic does not seek more input. He seeks silence. When momentum fades, he does not seek more speed. He seeks structure. He returns to solitude to listen to his own mind without interference. He corrects his course before the drift becomes a crisis. This is his anchor. It is always available. It does not depend on external permission. It does not require perfect conditions. It requires a chair, a pen, and a quiet place to sit. This law of solitude and inner clarity keeps self-belief from fading. It maintains your internal foundation by strengthening your ability to think independently. Without it, your mind becomes scattered. You lose the ability to focus on your own direction. Your thoughts become influenced by the pace and expectations of the world. You begin to adjust your behavior based on approval. You react to the moment without checking it against your principles. The absence of solitude disconnects you from your deeper reasoning. It weakens your ability to hold steady under pressure. When this habit is lost, your values begin to drift. You start to copy what surrounds you instead of returning to your core. You confuse visibility with purpose. You place more weight on the opinion of others than on the integrity of your actions. This opens the door to self-doubt. You begin to measure your worth by comparisons. You chase responses. You modify your decisions to gain attention or to avoid disapproval. The consequence is a slow erosion of self-trust. The further you move from solitude, the more you depend on the outside to tell you who you are. With solitude, your system holds. You protect your direction. You return to what matters. You review your actions without distortion. You test your emotions in quiet. You observe your mental habits without interference. Your mind becomes cleaner. You no longer rely on performance. You depend on internal reference. You measure yourself based on your own standards, not based on social trends or emotional noise. This returns control to your hands. Your identity stays intact when it is regularly examined. Solitude is that examination. It strips away distraction. It prevents your values from fading into the noise. You check if your speech matches your principles. You check if your habits support your goals. You realign before collapse. You correct yourself early. You remain accountable to the standards you declared. Confidence becomes rooted in familiarity. You become familiar with your mind. You stop reacting with confusion. You begin to act with precision. You can trace the reason behind your decisions. You can explain your silence. You can identify your limits. You are not guessing your way forward. You are reviewing what you already know about yourself. This creates clarity. That clarity leads to consistency. That consistency becomes the source of belief. Solitude reinforces the structure of belief. It strengthens the link between your thoughts and your actions. It helps you spot contradiction. It helps you remove confusion. It reduces dependence on emotional approval. It filters your attention. It makes your discipline stronger because your reasons for effort are now visible. It gives you time to question your motives and cut away what does not align. It gives shape to your personal philosophy. This is how the Stoic sharpens his vision. He does not wait for others to guide him. He returns to his own mind, where his path is stored. He trains that mind in silence. He refines it with repetition. He confirms his direction through private reflection. This clarity is not an accident. It is the result of sustained effort. It is built through habits that protect the mind from disorganization. He does not guess who he is becoming. He watches it. He measures it. He writes it. He faces it daily. This gives him a steady foundation. He becomes difficult to move. He acts without the need to be noticed. He speaks from structure, not from pressure. He decides based on principle, not on emotional impulse. His life becomes less about impression and more about alignment. This is how you build clarity that does not collapse, through quiet, through honest reflection, through the daily discipline of facing your own thoughts. You create a record. You track your inconsistencies. You stay aware of what must be improved. Each session of solitude gives you a clearer view of what you are becoming. Each pause gives you a chance to return to your path. You reset. You reinforce. You act from a position of mental strength. This is the discipline of a mind that leads itself. It holds its shape in stress. It does not imitate confusion. It does not depend on noise to feel alive. It builds its own clarity and protects it. This is the foundation of strong belief. It does not require validation. It is confirmed in silence. Chapter 7. The Law of Daily Alignment. The seventh Stoic law for unwavering self-belief is the law of daily alignment. This law states that self-belief is not a single decision, but a continuous practice of bringing your actions into agreement with your chosen values. The Stoic does not leave his direction to chance. He defines what matters and lives by it each day. Without alignment, discipline fades, energy scatters, and doubt grows. The Stoic trains through repetition. He builds his life on the foundation of daily execution. He knows that even small decisions carry weight. A single action may seem minor in isolation, but it contributes to the larger structure of identity. Each moment is a chance to confirm or contradict who he says he is. If he values reason, He chooses clarity in speech, even under tension. If he values justice, he remains fair when it is difficult. If he values courage, he enters discomfort with intention, not delay. Self-belief is built by matching values with action. Each act adds evidence. The more consistent the behavior, the stronger the foundation becomes. This alignment requires precision. The Stoic begins each day by stating his principles. He does not wait for emotion to decide his conduct. He sets the tone in advance. The Stoics practiced morning preparation as a mental discipline. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that people he encountered would be selfish, irrational, or undisciplined. He did not do this to judge them. He did it to train acceptance, patience, and self-governance. He mentally rehearsed what resistance might appear. He prepared his posture before the day tested it. This routine was not a performance, it was mental conditioning. It reminded the Stoic of who he intended to be. This reminder shaped his behavior under pressure. Without it, the mind becomes reactive. The environment begins to shape the person. The Stoic reverses that pattern. He uses structure to shape himself before the environment interferes. He removes uncertainty by returning to principle. Evening reflection completes the cycle. It is not a long process. It is quiet review. It is the discipline of sitting with your actions and asking if they reflect your values. Did you speak with integrity? Did you avoid needless distraction? Did you act in a way that reinforced your identity? The Stoic does not lie to himself. He does not inflate success or excuse failure. He observes the day as it was. Where he failed, he notes the reason. Where he succeeded, he confirms the method. This daily audit corrects drift and sharpens focus. This rhythm, morning direction and evening review, creates a stable frame. It eliminates confusion. You begin to live with fewer contradictions. You do what you said you would do. You behave according to the path you defined. This consistency builds inner stability. It creates the feeling of alignment between thought, word, and action. That alignment makes belief reliable. You stop searching for validation. You stop seeking permission. You begin to trust your own record. You know you are building strength because you can see it in your conduct. You recognize the difference between motivation and system. When the day begins with structure and ends with evaluation, you are less reactive to noise. You become difficult to move. You carry your own reference point. Each repetition confirms identity. Discipline becomes natural. Structure becomes habit. Self-belief becomes a byproduct of a life lived in alignment. This belief is grounded in what you've built, not what you imagine. You do not need to convince yourself that you are disciplined. You have proof. You do not need to pretend you are reliable. You have shown it. That certainty replaces anxiety. The Stoic treats each day as a complete unit. He does not wait for perfect conditions. He sees every sunrise as a chance to act with purpose. Each day is a clean opportunity. He protects it from waste. He simplifies what matters. He sharpens how he moves. Morning is for structure. Midday is for execution. Evening is for review. This cycle repeats. This repetition becomes the root of internal strength. This is the law of daily alignment. When your values are reflected in your conduct, belief becomes stable. When your identity is confirmed through action, you do not rely on praise or momentum. You rely on rhythm. You build strength by choosing clarity in the morning, discipline in the afternoon, and honesty in the evening. This is how the Stoic holds his ground. He does not hope to be strong. He trains strength into habit. This is how he stands firm in a chaotic world.